Hi, I'm Ted Alcoholic.
Hey, Ted.
This class was my 12 years ago. My first AA meeting was here at this crazy place. It was a lot different. It was over in the schoolroom. But when I came in, man, I was down in the dumps. I was pretty shitty feeling. I had no hope. And I kind of watched some guys that were happy, and I go, I don't know how to do it. I was miserable. Somehow, somebody pushed me to do the cake commitment. I was telling Aiden, the cake commitment saved my ass. And I started to just keep coming back. I don't know how just keep coming back, serving cake changed your life, but it did. It truly did. Then I met some interesting people in here that some are in this room today, which, God, I love them, I admire them, and they have been part of my life and my sobriety for 12 years. And the biggest thing that helped me the most, I think, was, well, the sponsor pushing my ass to keep coming, but I took that cake commitment for the second time. I don't know how it came out, but I did. Just keep coming back, and I just remember that serenity prayer, me seeing that serenity prayer over and over and over. I was in some frickin' pickles, man. I didn't think I'd ever get out of them. And one day, I just lost the urge to drink, and things started changing my life a little bit. Went through divorce. I was able to go through, you know, my father passing away, my mom passing away, my brother-in-law committing suicide. I was able to do all that stuff and process how I really felt. And any other day before I came in here, man, I would have drank just to not have to feel. But I've learned how to feel, and I kind of like it. I've met some really awesome people in here. Monty, Bernstein. Monty, I love you, man. I really, truly do. And Richard, my great grand sponsor. Tabby, Scotty, for God's sakes, Tomcat. These guys were here when I first came in. I don't get to come here very often because I kind of moved. It's no excuse because I work in Burbank and I live in San Diego. But
Fuck up your excuse.
Anyways, hey, I promise I'll at least make an attempt to come back more often. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Very quick, Ted.
Thanks, all right.
If you keep coming back, I'll get your medal. I'll change it out.
Appreciate it.
My name's oh yeah, I already did that part. Is there any other birthdays that I'm unaware of that are here? Thank you for letting me a service.
Okay. Mike Alcoholic. Before I go any further, if there are any veterans in the room, I want to thank you for your service. Some of you might be aware that in this last week we've celebrated National Medal of Honor, Valor Day, Medal of Honor Day, and we just celebrated Vietnam War Veteran Day. And not to go into outside issues, but it's a fact of life. Every time this country goes to war, AA membership expands. So to any veterans out there, thank you for your service. I want to thank Louis for asking me to come out here and lead tonight. Louis brags about this meeting. I've had the privilege to see Louis come in. I've seen Louis emerge as one of the leaders in Alcoholics Anonymous over the 5 years he's been sober. And he brags about you guys. You know, we were talking the other day, and I was asking him about this meeting. He says, he was telling me one of the things about this meeting that he really likes is how you reach out to the newcomers. And anybody that's new or relatively new, welcome. We were in a discussion at a participation meeting where somebody was saying that the most important person in Alcoholics Anonymous is the newcomer. Well, we hear that all the time. A lot of people say that. Then there's other people that say, no, the most important person in Alcoholics Anonymous is me. Because if we're not sober, you know, we're no use to anybody new. I kind of in the middle on that. See, I believe if we're truly an anonymous program, fellowship, we can't say any group of individuals is more important than the other one. We're all equally important. I look around the room. I really like the makeup of this meeting because I can see men like Louis that, who I saw come in to this program, come in drunks, trying to hang on with both hands, some whimpering. Louis came in demanding sobriety, and if you're new, demand sobriety. Demand it of the people around you. Find out, what do you have to do? But I can go around the room, and I see several men in this room that I had the honor and privilege to see when they first came in. But what's neat about it, I can also look around the room, and I see a couple of guys that were here when I came in. Guys that showed me the program, taught me the program. My sobriety date is September 29th, 1983, about a little over 38 years ago. That wasn't a good day. That day did not start out very good for me. Right? I woke up tied to the bed in the county hospital, vaguely aware it had something to do with my drinking. See, when I look around the room, and before I go much further, is there anybody in this room that doesn't know how to get drunk and make a fool of yourself? Oh, okay. Oh, really? I want to meet with you after the meeting, find out how you did that. My last full day of drinking, I was drinking about a fifth of cheap whiskey a day and a pint of cheap vodka. Now I look around the room and I see a lot of high shelf drinkers in this room. But when I say cheap, well, my favorite drink actually was 10 High, straight out of the bottle, in the parking lot of the liquor store I bought it at. But that was high class drinking for me. And anybody's ever, whatever your drink of choice was, if you drank it in the liquor store parking lot, you know it tastes good. It tastes good. It is delicious. I don't care if it was Ripple, 10 High, or some of that fancy stuff. Those San Marino boys might know. I don't know. But I'm sure we can hear from them later on. But as I say, 10 High, and nowadays I see these commercials for sipping whiskey. Is there anybody in here who knows what sipping whiskey is? Now, I don't know about you guys. I was a glugger. Right? Where you take the bottle, glug, 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 blah, booyah. That was me, right? That was my way of drinking. I don't know about sipping whiskey. I was a glugger. But 10 High was high end for me. My regular drink was, for you old timers, you'll remember this, the Save-On Deluxe brand. Right? They don't have Save-On anymore. I guess CVS bought them out. But they used to have a blended whiskey. Boy, it was crap. Right? The only thing for you youngsters, don't remember Save-On Deluxe. The only thing I can compare it to is, remember we'd go in the bars, those dive bars, those wonderful stinking dive bars we'd go into, where they have the water, and they put all the glass and they dunk them into the water, and then dunk them into another sink and rinse them out. It always had kind of a soapy taste to it, and you always knew you're probably going to have no trouble crapping in the morning, because there was just enough. That's kind of what Bourbon Deluxe tasted like, right? And by the way, I'm cleaning up my story because I understand I'm on YouTube, and that's why I didn't give my last name. But that's how Bourbon Deluxe tasted. And back in those days, the vodka wasn't a whole lot better. And they hadn't invented, what is it now, the Grey Goose, all these gourmet vodkas. Oh, yeah. Right? What the hell is that? I finally had to ask a youngster, what is this Grey Goose? And he started talking about how the Iron Curtain had come down and all this. And I think, man, I'm in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm getting a geopolitical lecture on commerce, right? But the funny thing about all the Grey Goose stories they all ended the same way Popoff and Smirnoff ended, handcuffs, right? So I don't know why they're paying the extra, but that's none of my business. So my last full day of drinking, I was consuming about a fifth of the cheap whiskey and about a pint of cheap vodka. And my first full day without a drink, I woke up tied to the bed in the county hospital. In between the two, I had single-handedly led the defense of the city of San Gabriel against the invasion of the Martians. And some of you have heard my story, you know, those ingrates have never thanked me. Right? Never thanked me. Right? You think they'd give me a plaque or something, but no, they never. In fact, they actually thought that their police department was better equipped to handle the impending invasion. Hence, I was tied to the bed in the county hospital. But to get, they came to me, and our literature tells us the only requirement for membership at Alcoholics Anonymous is a desire to stop drinking. I did not have a desire to stop drinking. I had a desire to get untied. And if it meant saying I'd go to Alcoholics Anonymous, sign me up. I said I'd go to Alcoholics Anonymous, they untied me. Now there was probably 6 people I could call that would come pick me up that morning. 5 of them, we would have gone straight to the bar, and that would have been the end of it. The one guy I called was 5 years sober in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I hated that guy. I just hated him. I had heard stories about him, how he had quit drinking, like I care. The guy was old. Must have been 60 years old. Right? And hell, yeah, at least 60. At least 60. Now here I was hip, slick, and cool. It was 2 weeks after my 33rd birthday. What the hell does this old man have that I want? But I wanted to get untied. And that man was having lunch with his wife. Had gone home from work and was having lunch with his wife. And he put that down to come get a stammering, wet-brained drunk out of the county hospital. Who does things like that? Only a member of Alcoholics Anonymous would do that. Right? He came and picked me up. That night he took me to a meeting. It was above the church over in South Pasadena. It was one of those little closed meetings that weren't in the directory. And he had to leave me in the car as he went upstairs to get permission to bring me up. And they said, okay. And it was a small group, maybe a half dozen people. And I can remember walking up the stairs, that feeling of going to the gallows. You'd see in the movies where they would march the condemned prisoner up to the gallows, up the steps. I had absolutely no idea what was waiting behind that door. But as I'd asked him, where are we going? He had said to me, why does it matter? And I knew he was right. It didn't matter where we was going. It didn't matter what was behind that door, because it was better from what I was coming from. I walked in that first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and this old lady, nice, pleasant lady, her name was Harriet. I remember she wore glasses and she was wearing some kind of print dress. And she stepped up and she handed me half a cup of coffee. Because remember, guys, they didn't give us a full cup back in those days because we shook so bad, we spilled it all over it, right? She handed me half a cup of coffee and told me, welcome. And she meant it. I don't know how I knew that, but that's the way we alcoholics are. You know, you can't bullshit a bullshitter. We see it in each other's eyes. We know when the person we're talking to is telling us the truth. We know that. And so by instinct or habit, I knew that she was not lying to me, that she genuinely was welcoming me. So here I was, I'd already, in the hospital, tied to the bed. I'd done the first step, because that's a no-brainer when you're tied to the bed in the county hospital. I admitted to my innermost self that I was alcoholic, and Chapter 3 tells us that's our first step in recovery. In Chapter 5, our first step, as Bill wrote them out, right, where we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Again, that was a no-brainer for me. Right? Tied to the bed, that's a no-brainer. But when Harriet handed me that half a cup of coffee, I actually started to do that second step. You know, that we came to believe that power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity, because there was some feeling that there was hope there. So if you're new, if you're relatively new, I hope you walk away from this meeting as welcome as I was that first night at my meeting at Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's our responsibility. So that's why I was so proud to hear from Louis as he talked about this group, how that this is a group that's a top priority. Because our tradition 5, tells us that's the group's primary purpose, is to carry the message to the alcoholic who suffers, right? Our 12th step tells us, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics. But the tradition tells it's the group primary purpose, to carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers. A lot of groups nowadays don't have a message, right? We're at a loss for it, right? You go into a meeting, and at the end of the meeting, what do you walk away with? And we also have a new class of newcomers that we have to start thinking about. We have to recognize the fact that we have a lot of people that got sober on Zoom who have never been to a face-to-face, in-person meeting, and they're afraid. I've been part of the seniors in sobriety meetings for several years now, right? Because I'm past that 60 years old, so I don't think it's so old anymore, right? But a lot of our seniors, they're scared, right? They're scared to come into meetings. I still go to meetings. I find, even in open meetings, we find people that are still wearing the mask, right? And they're our brothers and sisters. We have to welcome them because they don't have the benefit. They haven't experienced what it's like to be in a face-to-face meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. They don't know what the camaraderie is. They're used to seeing it on the computers or on their phones. And I'm not going to knock the Zoom meeting. I personally don't like them, right? I love the idea that we were mavericks. We were going to clandestine meetings, outlaw meetings, right? McDonald's Park and some of the other ones. We kept the meetings going at the Hut, and we kept them wherever we could. We kept the meetings going because we needed that camaraderie, right? But now as we come back together, the fellowship has to reunite itself. We have to bridge that gap. And as we were talking, you know, in my arrogance and stubbornness, I had never read the 4th edition of the Big Book. See, I was in general service. I was the district committee member for this district way back in the 80s when we were voting on whether or not we needed a 4th edition. And I was of the opinion, well, 3rd edition was good enough to get me sober. It's good. We don't need another edition, right? And in my stubborn arrogance, I never bothered to read the 4th edition. It wasn't necessary. Till I found out, you know, just recently, in the forward of the 4th edition, it says that we're going to be having our meetings on computers. See, you youngsters were acting like you'd invented Zoom and all this technology, and like us old timers were standing in the way, you know, like, fuck you, right? You can take your technology and stick it, right? But then it dawned on me, when I was talking about this earlier, it dawned on me when I read that forward, hell, we invented it. The old timers invented the Zoom meeting. We invented the computer meeting. It's in the book. That was written in 2001, and we agreed on that back in the 80s. Shit, the youngsters ain't got nothing on us, right? Shit, you're learning your technology from us. I like that. So all of a sudden, I started reading the 4th edition, and I was a little bit more lenient about the Zoom thing. Because, again, those are our brothers and sisters, right? We can't be divided. We have to make sure we're reaching out to everybody. Especially thinking, as we welcome our newcomers, we want to welcome back into the newcomers to the meetings. Because what you guys have in this room, what we have in this room, not just this room, but all around the world, is one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic to achieve sobriety. It's worked. It's worked now for over 80 years. Right? It defies odds. It defies science. There's guys in this room that have been around long enough that you remember back in the days when they used to put us in straitjackets and dunk us in ice water. That was their treatment for alcoholism. Right? You got to remember when Bill and Bob wanted to go into the hospitals to carry the message in the early days of our program, the doctor said, why not? These guys are hopeless anyhow. They didn't give a shit. Yeah, go in, do all you want. Right? But what it is one alcoholic talking to another. And it doesn't matter if we're in a room of 50 men or 5 men. That's all we got, is each other. And when the world is in chaos, and believe me guys, the world is in chaos. When the world is in chaos, it looks to sober men to lead it out. I'm always honored to be in a room full of sober men. Thank you.